For a while now, I have been on the hunt for standalone fantasy books. Books that I can read and finish and put down and nothing comes afterwards. And I can also pick them up with zero context from other books in a series. I have been looking for these. I know they exist, okay? I've been reading a bunch of series for a long time, so I wasn't really looking for standalones before. So I started looking for them and I found a ton. I assembled them into a list. These are the 10 that I am most excited to read. You know, it is a little bit ironic that I say I'm looking for standalones, and yet I plan on starting The Faithful and the Fallen by the end of the year. I just started Throne of Glass, and I'm also reading 3 other series currently. But, you know, I'm not a hypocrite. I am a man of my word, okay? I plan on using all of these standalones to break up the several other series that I'm reading, which have definitely started to overwhelm me, which is why I'm reading the standalones. Anyways, let's not diddle-daddle. Let's hop right into it. The first book that I want to talk about is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. The reason that I am so excited to start Blood Over Brighthaven is that I finished reading The Sword of Kaigen, also by M.L. Wong, less than 2 weeks ago. It's now one of my favorite books of all time. If you saw my video on it, you know that. And so I want to devour every single thing that M.L. Wong has written, and I've seen that Blood Over Brighthaven has amazing reviews. I've heard it described as like dark academia meets Full Metal Alchemist. I am so here for that, dude. I am so here for that. That sounds incredible. It's got a really, really high rating on Goodreads, and my favorite reviewers have all left like glowing recommendations for it. So I really want to get to that. That might happen before the end of the year because I still am like thinking about The Sword of Kaigen all the time, and I want to read everything else that M.L. Wong has written. So this is probably going to happen sooner rather than later. This next book is a book that I thought was like universally loved. I've only seen good things about it before I posted my TikTok on this exact same topic. I want to read Babel, but I got a lot of comments. There were people arguing in my comments on my TikTok for this, and some people loved it, some people hated it. It seemed like there was more mixed opinions on it than I thought there were initially, but I have heard good things in general about this book, so I want to kind of get my own opinion on it, especially now that I know that it's somewhat divisive. But again, some of my favorite reviewers said really good things about this, so I'm pretty confident that I'll at least enjoy it a little bit. I don't know exactly when I'm going to get to this, though, because I know that R.F. Kuang also wrote the Poppy War trilogy, which is another series that several people have recommended to me, so maybe I'll read that first and then Babel, or I don't know why I would do that. They're not related. It's not like they're the same series, but I don't know. I just, R.F. Kuang, I want to read her works eventually anyway, and I don't know where I'm going to start with that. Maybe it will be Babel, just because it's a standalone and I can get a taste for her writing, you know? Next up is actually a book that I planned on reading this month. That's not happening anymore because I'm reading Pet Sematary for the book club that I started, and I'm also reading like a bunch of other stuff, so I just don't have time, but I'm going to read Piranesi probably next month. This is one of those books that I know almost nothing about. Like, I've purposefully kept away from learning what's about. The cover is super intriguing to me. It looks like it's got like something to do with mythology. I know that Piranesi is like a name that's like, I maybe should know it from something, but I don't. And this seems like something I'll really get into because it's a really short book. I looked up, it's like 250 pages or something. It's like really short. So this is something I'll knock out in just like a day or two, but it seems like from what I've heard, this is very much a unique story, and it's got a unique way of telling the story that it's exploring. And I'm curious what that means, for one, and two, I'm always looking for stuff that's a little bit more experimental, and this seems like maybe not experimental, but like, it's different, and that's something I always enjoy with my fantasy books. For this next book, it's actually an author that I had meant to try a while ago, and I never got into his book because I was just not like reading a whole lot at the time, but it's Tagana by Guy Gavriel Kay. Again, an author that seems to have a lot of divisiveness. Some people say he's a master and that he's like one of the best authors ever. Some people absolutely hate him. I have seen a lot of arguments like on Reddit and stuff, especially about what people think about Guy Gavriel Kay. So I want to experience. I love seeing people argue about that stuff. Not for my mental health or for anybody's mental health. It's stupid to argue about that stuff, but because it means that I now get to form my own opinion and see who I thought was right in that argument. And this is one of those books that I've heard such mixed things on generally about Guy Gavriel Kay, and I really think I will end up liking this. I've heard it's like historical fantasy almost, like it's like not exactly historical fiction. It's definitely fantasy, but it's like adjacent to both of those. If that makes any sense, because that's the way I had it described to me. And I've also heard that Guy Gabriel Kay is a master of prose, and the more and more I've read, the more I've come to appreciate prose. So just knowing that makes me excited, because I love me some beautiful writing. However, I do not know what this book is about. It's a total mystery to me. All right, and this next book is a book that recently got hyped into oblivion earlier this year. It's This Is How You Lose the Time War. Again, don't know very much about it. I still have only heard good things. I don't know a single person that I have seen on the internet that has said something negative about it, which is astounding. Like, usually when something gets that popular, there's like a whole wave of people saying it's trash, but I haven't seen that. Maybe it has happened, but I haven't seen it. Again, don't know anything about this book, but I'm purposely staying away from knowing anything about it because I'm super, super interested. And if it's like got something to do with time, which I'm assuming it does because it's the Time War, I want to stay away from knowing anything about it because I love me some like mindfuck stuff. And this book seems like maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not, though. Maybe I'm overthinking it. I do think that the story about why this blew up this year is so funny, though. There was a Twitter user called Bigalus Dickalus, which is fucking amazing. That's the greatest username of all time. And he made like a whole thread talking about how much he loved this book, and it kind of sparked this whole movement of people reading the book and saying how much they loved it, and it became like a huge thing. And that's so funny to me. Like, I had never heard of this book before that. It came out a while ago. It's not like a new book. I think it came out years ago. And the fact that these authors probably thought like that they were never going to get more out of this book than they already had when it first got published. And then some random Twitter user named Bigalus Dickalus just sends a whole movement their way. That's amazing. So next, I already talked about I am reading some Stephen King this month. I actually just finished Fairy Tale yesterday, and I'm reading Pet Sematary now. I'm going to pick that up later today for the book club. I do want to continue reading Stephen King. I've read a lot of his books at this point, and I'm interspersing them with the rest of my reading, but the one I'm most excited to get to at this point is 11/22/63, because I know that this is not a horror novel, and I've read fantasy from him now. Fairy Tale is sort of fantasy. The Dark Tower is definitely fantasy. It's like fantasy western horror. It's like a blend of a bunch of stuff. But this is the only book by him that I know of that is like explicitly not any of that. It's like fiction. Maybe there's some fantasy elements because I believe it has something to do with time travel. But as far as I'm aware, it's largely just a fiction book. And I want to know what that is from Stephen King. And I've heard such incredible things, like people saying it's like one of their favorite books ever. People saying it's maybe Stephen King's best book he's ever written, those are bold statements to be making. So I'm really excited to get into that because I love Stephen King's writing most of the time. Sometimes he misses, but you know, with as many books as he's written, of course. So I'm excited. I'm excited to know what this book is and why people rave about it so much, because as a Stephen King fan, that gets me very, very excited. So I actually remember shelving this next book when I used to work at a bookstore. It's The Invisible Life of Addy Laroo. I think I was working at a bookstore when it came out, and it was like pretty popular when it came out, but I didn't know anything about it. I had no interest in reading it just because like I had so many other books that I was picking up at the time. That was when I was really starting to get into reading like more and more. So that was always a name that I knew, but it was never like on my radar. But recently my mom read it. She finished it like last week or the week before, and she loved it. She tore through that book. And so I trust her opinion, and that makes me want to read the book. But again, this is one of those books, I made my TikTok about this, and so many people were trashing it and saying they hated it. And that's so interesting to me because I don't know, it's weird when a single book like that. Well, I understand when like a series or an author, you know, they get so big and people just start trashing it. But like The Invisible Life of Addy Laroo, it's just a standalone book that was popular, I think, when it came out. I don't know for sure. I wasn't really in tune with the book community at the time, but I didn't expect there to be such strong opinions on it. Like there were so many people that were vehemently saying they hated it. Like people people obviously on the internet are just mean about stuff, but like the way they were saying it, I was like, man, that's like kind of fucked up that you're saying this about just a book. Like, I don't know, not the point of this video. I am interested in this book. I think I'm going to like it because my mom liked it and we have similar taste. And I just want to know, again, a lot of these books, the reason I bumped them up on my TBR is because they're a bit divisive. And I'm just like, man, I want to know if I like it or not. Is this for me? Who knows? But again, this is an example of a book that I do not know very much about. I'm assuming that there's something invisible about a girl named Addy Laroo. Maybe maybe I'm onto something here. Moving on, I have heard Naomi Novik's name so many times. I believe she has her Scholomance series. Correct me if I'm wrong. She wrote like A Deadly Education in that series, right? I don't know for certain. Someone, if you know, comment down below. I don't know for sure if that's true. Maybe I'm mixing her up with someone else, but I know that she has written a few standalones. I've heard good things about Uprooted, but the one that I am most excited by that I have seen reviews of is Spinning Silver, which, again, don't know very much about it. I think I read in a review that it's like a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin with like a twist on it, which I am totally here for. I love fairy tale like reimaginings, so I am here for that idea. I also just want to read some Naomi Novik because her name keeps popping up anytime I'm researching fantasy authors, and I know she's not like, you know, like one of the massive big selling authors, but when I look into the fantasy like subgenres, she always pops up with A Deadly Education. If I'm correct, if I'm remembering correctly, she always shows up in that. She always shows up in the standalone lists that I look up. So I want to like get a taste of her writing, because if I end up liking it, that seems perfect for me right now. If she's writing a lot of standalones and those are what I want, yeah, that's exactly the route I want to be taking. Speaking of authors that I really want to get into because I know they have a lot of standalones, Neil Gaiman. I have only read Coraline by Neil Gaiman, so I really want to explore the rest of his work. I did a lot of research into like a lot of his books, and I'm not sure exactly which one I want to start with, but in premise, the one that excites me the most is The Ocean at the End of the Lane. I am not sure exactly what this story is going to be about, but the cover for this book looks incredible, and I read like a short little snippet, and I am interested. I am interested in this book. I'm interested in just reading Neil Gaiman. I mean, he's one of the titans. He's one of the biggest authors ever, so I want to experience what his stories are. I mean, Coraline is its own thing. I mean, I don't know if all of his writing is like that, but that's definitely, it's like a kid's story, you know? It's a creepy kid story, but a kid story. So I want to know what he's written beyond that, because that's like the one thing I've gotten from him. And I've never seen really even adaptations of his work. I've never seen Sandman. I've never seen Good Omens. I've never seen so I don't know anything about his stories. I don't know what kind of a writer he is. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm excited to dip my toe into his work, figure out what he's got going on. And actually, around the time that I start Neil Gaiman, I'm probably going to start reading some Terry Pratchett. I know that they collaborated on Good Omens, and I just have been wanting to read Terry Pratchett for a while anyway, so maybe that would be like the vibe. I kind of read both those authors at the same time, because next year, Discworld is absolutely on my TBR, at least not the whole thing, but like parts of it, and I think it would be fun for me to kind of have those blended together. Some Neil Gaiman, some Terry Pratchett. Maybe it would be too much of like, I don't know how similar they are of writers, but I think that might be fun because those are two massive names. And I think it would be a lot of fun to explore both of them sort of congruently, you know? Okay, and the last book on this list is Guns of the Dawn by Adrien Chaikovsky. I really want to read Children of Time by Adrien Chaikovsky also, but I know that's book one in a trilogy. I'm not trying to start a trilogy right now, but since I've heard such good things about Children of Time, I think maybe reading Guns of the Dawn first will give me a taste of Tchaikovsky's writing, and I know very little about this book, as with many of the books on this list, but it's described as a pseudo-Napoleonic historical fantasy adventure, which sounds amazing to me. That sounds like something I would absolutely eat up, dude. Fantasy adventure, boom, you got me. Napoleonic, pseudo-Napoleonic fantasy adventure with guns? What? That sounds incredible. That sounds like such a unique story idea. So I really want to check that out. I want to know what that is, because I'm intrigued. I am definitely intrigued by that whole concept. Again, I can't really say much more than that about this book, though, because I don't know anything about Adrien Chaikovsky, really, apart from that he writes sci-fi also, and I don't know very much about this book. But if you haven't heard of this book before, put it on your radar. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. I haven't read it yet, but I do think in concept, at least, if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. Anyways, those are the top 10 standalone books that I am most excited to read. Let me know what you think about this list. Let me know what standalones you want to read, or what standalones you have already read that you liked, because I keep getting recommendations now that I have been publicly talking about wanting to read more standalones, and this list continues to grow longer and longer. And I love that. I always want more books in my TBR, no matter how overwhelming it feels. But anyways, until the next video, which will probably be a weekly update, I hope you're happy and healthy. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you then. Bye-bye.